Today, I want to tell you about a national park that is one of a kind. And I mean that literally. Wolf Trap National Park for the Performing Arts is the only national park in America dedicated to the presentation and interpretation of the performing arts. You can see concerts here, operas, symphonies, dances, plays, stand-up comedy even. If it's performing arts related, you can likely find it here at Wolf Trap. They host everyone from big stars to up-and-comers and all types of music from pop to rock to folk with everything in between. It truly is a one-of-a-kind park, and it has a fascinating story, which I can't wait to tell you about, so let's dive in. Really, there's only one place to start with this story, and that's with the patron saint of Wolf Trap, Catherine Filene Shouse. Wolf Trap National Park for the Performing Arts is a direct result of her vision and leadership. Mrs. Shouse was born in Boston in 1896, the daughter of a wealthy department store family. From a very young age, Mrs. Shouse was instilled with a love of two things: nature and the arts. Her father founded the Boston Symphony, and her mother started the Boston Music School Settlement for underprivileged children. This upbringing had a big impact on Mrs. Shouse and would continue to shape her life for many decades to come. Mrs. Shouse led a very politically, socially, and philanthropically active life. After graduating from college, she took a job at the U.S. Department of Labor in the Women's Division. But this was the early 20th century, and times were different back then. Her parents disapproved of her decision to work, and so they actually cut her off financially. But Mrs. Shouse clearly didn't care much about the status quo for women back then, as she went on to become the first woman to serve on the Massachusetts State Democratic Committee and was the first woman appointed to the Democratic National Convention, where she represented Massachusetts. In addition to these accomplishments, Mrs. Shouse co-founded the Women's National Democratic Club in 1925, founded and served as the chairman of the Institute of Women's Professional Relations from 1929 to 1945, was appointed by President Coolidge to the position of chairman of the first federal prison for women in 1926, where she instituted a job training and rehabilitation program, and she was also the first woman to receive a master's degree in education from Harvard University in 1923. I tell you all this to, again, paint a picture for you of the type of woman Catherine Filene Shouse was. Bold, determined, a fierce supporter of women and women's rights, a philanthropist and patron of the arts, and incredibly politically active, especially in Washington, D.C. It was here that Mrs. Shouse began acquiring rural farmland outside the city in what is today Vienna, Virginia. She acquired 53 acres there in 1930, eventually accumulating 168 acres in total and naming the farm Wolf Trap Farm, after the creek that ran through the property. So you can probably see where this is going. Yes, Mrs. Shouse's Wolf Trap Farm is the same land on which Wolf Trap National Park for the Performing Arts now sits today. But how did it get that way? Well, in post-World War II America, we know that suburbanization and sprawl was rapidly consuming rural land outside of America's cities. Washington, D.C. was no exception. All around Mrs. Shouse's Wolf Trap Farm, new developments, subdivisions, roads, etc. were all being built. Dulles Airport was constructed nearby as well. Mrs. Shouse becomes concerned with the level of development she is seeing in her previously rural bucolic corner of Fairfax County and begins exploring options for donating the farm as a park. At first, Mrs. Shouse approaches Fairfax County, Virginia to donate the farm as a sort of regular old recreational park, but she never hears back from them. After that rejection, it was at this time that Mrs. Shouse begins to look into the option of donating her farm, not only as a park, but as a performing arts park. A unique concept indeed. Now, at this point, I want to take a step back and tell you about the broader cultural landscape for cultural programming in the Washington, D.C. area at this time. Specifically, I want to tell you about Secretary of the Interior Stuart Udall's role in that programming. Longtime viewers of the channel will recognize Stuart Udall as an ardent defender of America's public lands and fierce advocate for the creation of new national parks. But in the marble-lined streets of Washington, D.C., Stuart Udall was known as a steadfast promoter of arts and culture. He was involved with promoting poets, artists, opera singers, playwrights, and composers in and around the D.C. area. He had a hand in bringing regular programming back to Ford's Theater after it had not played a show since the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and he played a role in the creation of the National Cultural Center in 1964, later renamed to the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, and today one of the most prestigious performing arts venues in the world. It was here that Udall came into the orbit of one Catherine Filene Shouse, who was an original board member at the Kennedy Center. Here again, you can see the extent of her performing arts connections in Washington, D.C. So Mrs. Shouse and Udall get to talking, and Mrs. Shouse throws out her performing arts park idea, and eventually Udall sort of gets the ball rolling. He gets the Interior Department to look at the possibility of a national park for the performing arts. I'll spare you the details, but through the magic of the DC bureaucracy, in 1966, a bill is signed establishing Wolf Trap Farm Park, later to be renamed to today's Wolf Trap National Park for the Performing Arts. Mrs. Shouse donated the land that the park still sits on today and agreed to help fund the construction of a performance venue, while the National Park Service would essentially oversee and manage the park itself. In the early days, there were definitely growing pains associated with getting this park off the ground. We have to remember that this was, and still is, a one-of-a-kind national park. There literally was no precedent for a national park like this. And when Wolf Trap was created, the National Park Service had basically no experience with performing arts programming, much less operating an entire park unit dedicated to them. They were used to like waterfalls and trails and all the things we typically associate with national parks, not the performing arts. That's why in 1968, a rather unique thing happened. At the urging of Congress, the Wolf Trap Foundation was established, a private, nonprofit corporation whose purpose was basically to provide the necessary performing arts experience that the National Park Service lacked. It was envisioned that these two organizations, the National Park Service and the Wolf Trap Foundation, would act as a sort of yin and yang to one another by complementing each other's strengths and compensating for each other's weaknesses. Again, there were growing pains. With such an unprecedented management arrangement, there were differences of opinion, different approaches to management, different priorities, but on the whole, the partnership worked. This unique public-private partnership allowed each party's strengths to really shine through, and they each kind of picked up the slack where the other one lacked. The Park Service had experience with park management, of course, and interpretive programming, while the foundation came to oversee the performing arts side of things. This management arrangement is still in place today, and the responsibilities between the Park Service and the Wolf Trap Foundation still break down along more or less similar lines. The Park Service is responsible for managing the land, they do own all of the facilities, they do the maintenance, and they provide educational and interpretive programming, in addition to maintaining the park's trail network and natural lands. The Park Service also offers behind-the-scenes tours during the off-season, bringing you backstage at the Filene Center itself. The Wolf Trap Foundation, on the other hand, is largely responsible for programming at the various performing arts venues, meaning the selection and curation of who's actually playing shows there. They also handle the public outreach, marketing, and fundraising. So again, we have this really unique public-private partnership here at Wolf Trap National Park for the Performing Arts. There are lots of national parks where you'll find a private presence inside of park boundaries, think hotels, concessionaires, tour guides, those sorts of things, but very rarely do you find a co-management arrangement like this. At the time it was created, it was very necessary to keep a park like this afloat, given the National Park Service's lack of experience with performing arts venues, but over time it has grown into a very fruitful and mutually beneficial relationship, each partner bringing something to the table that results in a pretty special park. I mean, the whole idea of it in the first place, a national park for the performing arts, is entirely unprecedented, and the novelty of that alone makes this park worth your time. But there's also the philosophy and the ideals that this park represents, some of which are applicable to all national parks, but some of which are totally unique to Wolf Trap. The latter of these are largely the result of the vision and leadership of Catherine Filene Shouse. She envisioned it as a place where her two great loves, instilled in her since childhood, could be wedded: nature and the performing arts. That's why the Filene Center, named after Mrs. Shouse's parents, is an outdoor open-air venue where you can take in some of the best performing arts programming in the country in a bucolic, natural setting. The park is flush with woodlands, native plant gardens, and open-air meadows and lawns. There's several miles of trails where you can experience the park's natural wonders. In short, it is the perfect blend of nature and culture. Mrs. Shouse was also big on children's education, which is why you'll find educational programming targeted towards them here at the park, especially at the famous Children's Theater in the Woods. The park has partnered with nearby schools to provide opportunities for students to be involved with the performing arts community, and there are all manner of festivals that the park takes part in. Again, all focused not just on providing performing arts programming for visitors to enjoy, but bringing them into that programming as well, making them feel like part of the community. And in keeping with the ideals espoused by the National Park Service for over 100 years now, this unique national park is open to all. Just like other national parks that are protected for us to be able to visit and to enjoy, so too with Wolf Trap. It's just, instead of a soaring mountain vista or a towering waterfall or a bygone battlefield, here you'll find singers and dancers and all manner of performers. This is a park that is preserved for the performing arts. And it's certainly one of the most unique national park sites I've been to. I just got back from my trip there and had a great time at my show. I saw Railroad Earth, Leftover Salmon, and Yonder Mountain String Band, all of which were fantastic. Shout out to all of them for an awesome show and introducing me to Jamgrass. Shout out to the wonderful volunteers who made this whole experience run smoothly and efficiently. And shout out to AJ and Morgan from the Wolf Trap Foundation for reaching out in the first place and for showing me around. Full disclosure here, by the way, I did receive press tickets from the Wolf Trap Foundation, but this video was not sponsored in any way. All opinions presented here are my own. I would never do an arrangement like that here on the channel, and sponsored content will always be labeled. So don't worry about any of that. But I do want to know what you think of Wolf Trap. Have you ever been? What show did you see? Did you check out the trails or the gardens? Did you even know this park existed? Let me hear it all down in the comments. As always, direct support on Patreon is always appreciated, and make sure to follow me on Instagram to keep up with my travels and channel updates. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.